Okay, so here we have an outline on our skull that was initially produced by single clicks with the pen tool that laid down a bunch of corner points. We came back through and gave curve information to almost all those points with a couple notable exceptions. And now we can get back in and start to edit things where the shape isn't looking exactly right. So here, for example, one thing I might be able to do, which we covered in a previous video, is to grab the white arrow, which is the letter A on the keyboard, and I can back off on this tangency handle so it gets a little bit less aggressive. And that actually happens to do a pretty good job. It looks slightly pointy over here, but that's actually what the skull does. And let's see if we can do the same thing over here. So if I back off this tangent handle, it does a pretty good job, but if we wanted to get really uptight about it, you can see that as I move this along, I'm either going to have a little bit of material showing proud over here, or I'm going to be losing a little bit on this side. So let's say we wanted to add a point, and I think this is going to be a territory where something like that will be necessary. So I'm going to leave the existing tangent handles alone. I've got my white arrow, and I've clicked on the path so that it's active, and I know that because I can see that center line and its tangency handles and anchors. So now I'll head back to P for pen. And there is an explicit tool that adds and subtracts points, but I find it unnecessary. So I just have the pen generally, and you'll see there's a little asterisk down next to it. But if I float next to a path that is active and there's no anchor point at that location, it'll automatically say, well, do you want to add one? And in this case, I do. So I click to add it, and now you can see that if there's an active path and we hover over an anchor with the pen tool, it'll also offer the opportunity just to lose it. So I added an anchor here. The computer knows that it's on a curve, so it adds an anchor that has curvature information, and that tangency handle is automatically calculated to match the existing curve, so when you add that point, it won't actually make any changes, but it gives you the opportunity to do this. So A for white arrow. I make sure that only that anchor is selected, and I can see this one is white, so that means that just this guy is selected. And then I can pull that out, and that's going to lend some more curve information and complexity to that area. Similarly down here, I can tell that I'm going to need an additional point. No amount of futzing with these tangent handles is going to make up for the loss of that point or the lack. So I'll add one right there, and I think the hotkey is I hold down Command on the Mac. That gets me right to the white arrow, and then I can pull that guy out. And if I really want to go for broke, I might even add one more and then sort of pull that in so I get that little shape right there. So you'll see once it gets dense, it does start to get a little bit confusing because it's hard to know, for example, which of these is an anchor and which of these is a tangency handle because they look more or less the same. I think technically you can see the anchor is a square and then the end of the tangency handle is a circle, but man, they don't make it super apparent. It's possible that you can dig through the preferences and change that around, but I'm going to leave that up to you guys. Okay, so here's another little bit of detail that I might want to try to capture, so I'm going to add myself a point, hold down Command, stretch that guy out. And I just, we like to make things look detailed also without looking, like, what's the right way to put this? You don't want it to seem sketchy and sort of imprecise, but at the same time, you want to have those little details notching out. So here, this is really specific, and here I'm kind of giving in to the sweeping nature of the curve just because I think it looks really nice. So let's zoom in here a little bit. I'm going to give this chin a little cleft. In some cases, what you might find you need to do is to add 3 points. So I'll go 1, 2 to sort of anchor the sides, and then 3, hold down the Alt key, and then pull that up a little bit. And that allows me to notch in a little bit more aggressively than I would be able to do otherwise. Okay, so now I can take the black arrow, or V, on the keyboard, and I can swap those colors around. I could also hide my background image, and I can just give myself a sense if this shape is starting to look good. So I can look through here and try to decide, well, does this area look a little bit more stylized and abstracted, and does this area maybe look a little more precise, and is that a mismatch? But I'm overthinking it at this point. I think it's going to be just fine. So with that in mind, we're now going to head through towards making some of the interior visuals that make up this image.